What's up, everybody? Friday, November 22nd, TGIF. I got a lot I want to talk about on this video, so hopefully you stick with me. First, let me just get one thing out of the way. Monetary conditions have once again turned positive, so we are seeing an extension of the current rally in the stock market. So we're going higher. Just wanted to get that out of the way. Now, I've said this so many times in the past that economics is really like deep, it's almost like a cult. Mainstream economics. It is nowhere near, nothing like a hard science whatsoever. I mean, even the mention of economics, the profession of economics, with any sort of a connection to real science is just laughable. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about a comment made from our Fed chairman, Jerome Powell. All right, now I've been on this guy's case since day one. I have said I think he is the worst Fed chair since Paul Volcker. Okay? This guy is really ignorant when it comes to understanding the monetary system, understanding economics. And I've come out with specific examples of things that he has said. And it's not just his, very casual dismissal of MMT, which he does not want to understand, all right? But it is things he has done, it is things he is saying. Now here's another one that he just came out with. In his testimony last week in front of Congress, he said that, hey, the debt, and he was talking again, and I think I did a video about this. He was talking about how the debt, I did do a video on this, the debt is unsustainable and all this nonsense, right? You're not going to run out of dollars. The United States spends in dollars, all of its liabilities are in dollars. The debt is not unsustainable. That claim is ridiculous, all right? But he says the debt is growing faster than the economy. And you hear this claim, and it's true. The debt is growing faster than the economy, as if that is something to be afraid of, or something that has some heavy negative meaning to it. Now, there's a simple reason why the debt is growing faster than the economy, and that's because the non-government, that is everyone other than the U.S. federal government that issues dollars, the non-government wants to net save a certain amount of dollars. So there's going to be dollars created just by virtue of the growth in the economy, okay? And then there's going to be an additional amount. So when I talk about dollars, you can just transpose the word or put in the word debt, all right? Because it's interchangeable, at least in the way they talk about it, right? Because they call it the national debt. Those are dollars, right? The debt is going to grow faster than the economy because a certain amount above what the economy needs is desired to be saved by the non-government. They want a stash of dollars on the side. Now, for the debt to grow slower than the economy, the non-government, that's you and me and firms and other countries and everybody else, would have to dissave or spend more, right, than we take in. So we'd have to go into debt. So as long as the non-government wants to net save, the debt is going to grow faster than the economy. And there can only be limited amounts of time where the reverse can be true. That is, at least under our structure. In other words, we get back to this thing of sectoral balances. Somebody has to run a deficit. Whether it's the sovereign here in the United States, the federal government, or whether it is the non-government domestically, that means households and firms, or whether it is the foreign sector. Now we know the foreign sector runs a surplus because they export to us and they accumulate dollars, right? The domestic private sector, that's businesses and households, they run a surplus. They have a net of savings, a surplus of savings. So the government must, by identity, run a deficit. And if those other two sectors want to save, the debt is going to grow faster than the economy. That's just the way it works. And if you don't want it to work that way, then one of those other sectors, either the non-government, the domestic, household, and business sector of the United States, has to go into debt, okay, has to have a negative balance, or the foreign sector has to stop exporting to us and they have to start importing and running trade deficits. So that's not happening. So he does not understand this. He does not understand. And look, even though I've been critical of him, this runs throughout mainstream economics. I watched a thing the other day, excuse me, the House Budget Committee had 4 economists on there. One guy was an MMT guy, Randall Wray, who I know. But you had Randy Wray, you had Jared Bernstein, you had Olivier Blanchard, I think he's with the IMF, Bernstein, I don't know who he's with. And you had John Taylor, a Stanford economist. Now, I was blown away by these guys, maybe with the exception of Randy Wray, because he did come with an MMT perspective, although there was one moment in that testimony, in his answering of questions, he was, I was going to make a separate video on this, and Randy Wray was asked by representative from South Carolina, Ralph Norman, no relation here, okay? And this guy, Ralph Norman, was throwing all these ridiculous, inapplicable comparisons to Randy Wray. He was like, you know what happens, he's like, households, Mr. Wray, you want us to spend, but don't you realize that households have to balance their books? And what happened in Argentina, Mr. Wray? What happened in Latin America? What happened in Peru? What happened in Chile? You want us to be like them? So he was throwing all these inapplicable comparisons. And Wray, to my astonishment, who's like, he wrote a textbook on MMT, and he's one of the MMT gods, so to speak, up there with Mosler and everybody. He just sat there with this dumb smirk on his face and never even attempted to give a rebuttal, saying like, hey, look, all those examples, you might as well throw in Zimbabwe, right, and Weimar Republic in those examples. They're not, that's apples and oranges. A household is not a currency issuer. Argentina, Chile, Peru, Weimar, Zimbabwe, they have debts denominated in other currency, right? I mean, there was a million ways that Randy Wray could have rebutted what this clueless moron was saying. Anyway, but what I want to say is that mainstream economics, it's like a cult. It's like a religion. There is no relationship or no similarity to a real science whatsoever. You had this professor from Stanford, John Taylor, and he's a famous economist, saying that, no, we have to cut the deficit because it's going to lead to higher interest rates and inflation. Yet you can go look at any graphic that compares interest rates to inflation, to the debt, or inflation to the debt over the last, you could go back 40 years, and it's been inverse. In 1980, interest rates were over 20%. All right? And the debt was only $800 billion. Today the debt is $22 trillion. And where's interest rates? 1.5%? Same thing with inflation. Inflation was rising at 12, 13% a year in 1980. Interest rates were at over 20%. And now the debt's at 22 trillion. And interest rates, and the debt's at 22 trillion and inflation is what, 2%? So, I mean, here's this guy I'm sure a major tenured professor of economics at Stanford, when the evidence, there's a mountain of evidence in front of him that absolutely refutes and disproves what he's saying, no interest at all. So it's a cult, it's a religion, and it's garbage. Anyway. All right, everybody. Had to get that rant off. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend. Bye.